When I was younger and new to debate, I relied on repeated messages that the people I liked to listen to had said because they meant something to me. When I got older, I relied on repeating facts I had seen and been told that the people I liked to listen to had said because the facts said something to me. Now I am even older, and I've realised that all this does is get people to talk past each other. Debate bros and moralistic argumentation alienate and deepen divides as people throw facts at each other and everyone just argues from their own ideology, rather than the most obvious shared ground, our shared humanity. I would like to introduce the result of that time, which I've called empathetic materialism. Empathetic materialism is the belief that tries to mesh a fact-based analysis of the exploitative systems that define our existence with the belief that anyone can be shown how that system works and have a hand in its evolution as a collective material force. Let's break that down into some key rules of engagement. Rule 1. This person has valid concerns that are worth listening to. The core of empathetic materialism is that regardless of what someone says, we must always treat their foundational assertion as good faith and an honest belief that they have. This might be that immigrants are dangerous, or the woke are destroying everything, or one you see more in Americans, black people are more violent than white people. The tightrope we walk is validating the underlying emotion without vindicating the claim. Rule 2. There is a fundamental emotional response inside each human that can be activated. We use an understanding of basic human evolutionary psychology to break things down into easy, primitive, and simple ideas, avoiding the endless quagmire of fact-focused debate and redirecting it towards a group-oriented understanding of exploitative systems. An example will be provided later, but for now, understand that we have to identify the emotion that can be hidden behind layers of rhetoric, not to destroy the opponent, but to help them feel seen. Rule 3. We are not winning debates, we are planting seeds of change. Far too often is online conversation driven towards who won. The reality is that neither side ever wants to concede that they've lost, which is the fundamental flaw of mainstreaming an adversarial form of discussion that objectively benefits moneyed interests and entrenched power, who exist regardless of who wins. We simply provide someone the tools and give them the validation that they are realistically only able to receive from people they already agree with, and disengage when we have established a connection. Rule 4. The other person is a real human being. This one speaks for itself. Treat everyone like a real person with all the emotions, thoughts, and dreams a real person has. We cannot form a collective without the realization we are all working from the same basic parts and pieces. These 4 rules help ground every response in a constructive and kind footing, something very often lost in a world where an opportunity to comment on someone else's post becomes a reactive and hostile virtue signal of your own values. By following these rules, we can quickly get the shape of someone's beliefs, identify common ground, and isolate topics to approach. This is not being nice, this is being an effective communicator, which requires effective listening. I've alluded to examples already, so let's look at common examples of rhetoric we can engage with using this framework. Example 1. Immigrants are dangerous. The first thing I would do in this situation is establish why they think immigrants are dangerous. So I would say to them, could you tell me why you think immigrants are dangerous? I'm trying to understand the situation. This puts you in the position of someone who is just seeking an answer, and you do not pretend that you lack any sort of pre-existing knowledge. They would likely bring up something like, look at this crime statistic, look how violent they are, which is a common ideological flow for right-wing thought. You would then reply, that does sound quite worrying. I think something like that is probably because most of them come to this country with very little. They probably can't even afford the stuff we can barely afford ourselves. What do you think? which simultaneously acknowledges that their belief is founded in a fact, but puts forward your own understanding as a realistic, neutral explanation any new observer could make, and invites them to engage with it. There is a chance they could genuinely have not considered whether immigrants may be driven to crime in order to afford the basic necessities we struggle to acquire ourselves. If they say it's because of their culture, you'll have to engage with that carefully. You would need to use empathy and materialism at the same time. An immigrant could genuinely come from a culture that is overtly misogynistic or violent, and that is a valid concern. If you remember Rule 1, that must be addressed, but you also have to gently show them that there is another angle to consider. Your reply could be, "That's a good point that they're coming from somewhere that doesn't have our values." It can't be entirely their fault though, can it? They've not had the chances we had to grow up somewhere that didn't believe in treating people that way. This is just one example, and yet we can see with everything the commenter shares with us, we gain a new window into their understanding that allows us to expand on narratives that typically do not get questioned. If they do not agree that we had a unique opportunity, do not press any further. You've already invited them to think differently and consider what you've said. What they do with that is up to them. Example 2. The woke are destroying everything. How I would handle this is, like before, with an honest question. I would say, what does woke mean? I'm not sure what the problem is. This acknowledges that there is a grievance to be addressed, whilst also inviting them to define that grievance. They would likely say something like, woke is what we call those uni students who block up roads and like woke stuff like LGBT whatever and are ashamed of their country. This is an extremely valuable response. We've defined woke as something we can discuss, and understood that this is actually an accusation of privilege by way of identifying an educated group of people as alien to the commenter. We could say something like, I know what you mean, sitting in the road, stopping people from going where they need to go, that's infuriating, but it does make me think those people must be really worried if that's how they're spending their weekend. It's a shame that we can't just talk to these people and have an honest conversation about it. I believe everyone should be treated fairly, which is why I'm proud of my country. This response is the gold standard for empathetic materialism. It validates the emotion of frustration, establishes common ground, and invites a discussion on gay rights. We could realistically leave it right there, but if the conversation continues, we can lean into these established shared beliefs to have a conversation and bridge the gap further if necessary. When I realised this method, it was less like a new discovery and more like the kind of thing I wished I could have been saying for years. We are so used to dehumanizing the other side, we forget that under the reactionary ideology is a real person who can be, if not convinced, can be engaged with, providing some basic manners are shown, and you actually listen to what they say without needing to resort to information that can be accused of being fake. So the next time you see a comment that gets you defensive and ready to own someone, try just kindly asking them questions instead. If they answer, treat it as the valuable data that it is. Someone has entertained your comment, and they will usually reveal exactly what you need to make your viewpoint relatable, rather than being objectively correct. I've been using it here and there, and the returns have been very interesting, especially when employing this tactic to implore other leftists to consider this method. Will it always give you immediate results? No. But will it stick with them? Absolutely. And rather than playing to win, let's try acting to change.